This is the Retro XP Podcast, a podcast dedicated to retro video games from the first and second gen with the Odyssey and the Atari 2600, all the way up to Gen 7 with the Xbox 360 and the PS3. On today's episode, we'll be talking about some pickups and what I've been playing lately, and a community topic I discovered on Reddit talking about remasters that we want and we want now. There will be some popular titles in that list and also some deep cuts as well that I'll be commenting on. Well, without delay, let's get going. So as far as pickups goes, I got my Polymega remix back from Polymega, and you'll have, I don't know if you remembered from a previous episode when I talked about this thing, I had to send it back because my modules didn't work on it. So they sent it back to me. I would say it took a little over a month, and I've been using it ever since. The modules work on this one now. I've been enjoying ripping my PlayStation 1 games onto my PC as now, like I said, my cartridge games. And it looks like they sent me a new one because the box I got was it kind of looked like, brand fresh new plastic on it and everything. So maybe they'll fix the one I sent them and send that one to someone else. I mean, I'm sorry if you get a refurbished console in the future, future buyer, but especially if you have to return it, I can't imagine that you're going to buy a new one. You're going to pay a new price and then get a refurbished one. God, I hope the company doesn't do that. But anyway, so one of the games I wanted to install was Parasite Eve 2. And I had a lot of problems doing so since disc 1 looked a bit scratched up. And this is kind of, I don't want to say it's a huge issue with the remix because you could probably run the disc just fine. It's just, and you can run the disc in the remix while playing the game. Like you can do that. You don't have to install it onto your PC unless you really want to. Which I do because I don't want to have to keep swapping discs in and out. It's just kind of a digital preservation library, quote unquote. So, but the problem was that when I was trying to install it, it kept canceling, and the disc was pretty scratched up. And I think this occurred with some of my other games that I tried to do. Alternatively, I tried to install some of these games. I think this happened with Dragon Valor as well. Dragon Valor and one of the discs from Legend of Dragoon. I forget which one it was off top. But some on those, I tried to go over to the base unit and install it there. And that worked just fine. But then bringing it from a hard drive to the remix and then transferring it that way, that worked okay. With Parasite Eve 2, it didn't work for either. So I don't have a complete version of this game, actually. Funny story. I bought it loose years ago. And on a whim at a pawn shop, I did a kind of video game hunting road trip with a few of my friends. And we were at a pawn shop somewhere in Tennessee. And just random pawn shop, we just went in to see if there were video games. And they had a booklet. They had the booklet for it, which is kind of wild because I'm like, you don't have the game here? You just have the booklet? And the guy's like, yeah, I get random stuff, random video games all the time. And it's, I've had this booklet here for a while. And I'm like, well, maybe one day I'll get the case for it. So I went to my local game shop, Game Together MKE, and I had them refurbish the Parasite Eve 2 discs for me. And once they did that, they come out to me with the actual game case because it's a 2-disc game. And they come out with the actual case itself, complete box art and everything. And they were sitting on it for a year, they told me. And they were wondering maybe at some point, maybe we'll get the game loose and then we can just complete the set or something like that. Or someone will come in asking for it. And then sure enough, the random thing, someone comes in, hey, can you refurbish my Parasite Eve 2 discs? And here I am. Now I'm back to having a complete set of Parasite Eve 2. I mean, what's your luck on my part? And honestly, be good to your local game stores. They can hook you up. They could have just maybe refurbished my discs and just sat on that case for the rest of the time, but they hooked me up. I really appreciate them for doing that. Other pickups I got recently are Philios for the Sega Genesis. I actually won it off a Whatnot auction, and coincidentally, it was from the same game store that I was mentioning. Game Together does Whatnot auctions every now and then, so it's a top-down shmup or shoot 'em up. And I've been thinking to myself about trying to get into these games now. I never was in the past because I felt like, and this may be a hot take, but I felt like once you played one shmup, you've played them all. And I know that's not true, but especially since some of there's some unique ones out there that I'm discovering, kind of getting into the retro space and seeing all these different shmups that people are playing, especially in the past. Like, admittedly, I think one shmup that stands out to me is like 1945, which it's a good game, and it's a game if I'm at an arcade and I see it, I play it. But yeah, like I was like, maybe I should start getting into shmups. And don't be surprised if I do an episode where I talk about some of my experiences with playing these new games and playing these new genres, because I think at my now phase of retro collecting, I think I want to kind of try to do things that I haven't done in the retro space before, and shoot 'em ups like these, like top down vertical shoot 'em ups, not my forte. So I think it's going to be an interesting journey for me. And this one looks especially interesting. Phelios itself looks like it's loosely based off of Greek mythology, so looks pretty cool. Not just like a standard like space, sci-fi shooter, or like a 1945 World War II type shooter. So I also picked up Daytona Championship Edition for the Sega Saturn, and I have the original version. But I've always heard the Championship Edition was the more kind of definitive edition, or the better edition. More tracks, more cars, more music tracks, and even slightly better driving mechanics, I think one could say. I heard they kind of did a huge shift in kind of like the drifting mechanics in the original version. And in this game, it feels kind of similar to Sega Rally, which I love on the Sega Saturn as well. It's probably my favorite racing game, actually, on the Sega Saturn. I mean, having played both the regular edition and the Championship Edition, I feel this one has better graphics too. I think it's like better draw distance, because the original game would have like pop-ups where it's like you would see like 10 feet in front of you and the graphics would just pop up as you're racing. It's kind of disorienting. I think maybe they tried to rush this game out, and then they were like, hey, let's actually make a definitive edition for this. So in came the Championship Edition, better graphics and stuff, and kind of more suited to the console space. I would think more of a console themed game because there's more to do. But the original one, I think, is more the pure arcade experience, more of a direct port, so to speak. And I wouldn't put that meaning as it's better in the grand scheme of things, because obviously the best way to play this is the actual arcade, sit down unit. But in this case, if you want to play it at the home console, I feel Championship Edition is the better version to play. So, especially on the Sega Saturn, if you're collecting for Sega Saturn. So, and it's actually not that expensive. I think I paid like $25-$30 for the Championship Edition. So, not bad. My hunting for the Master System games, it's pretty slow moving. I don't think I've picked up anything since Midwest Gaming Classic, really. There's not a lot out there, unfortunately, especially in America. Not a lot of people collected the Sega Master System. I mean, you can kind of tune into what the sales numbers were on my recent Sega Master System episode. I want to say it's like only like a couple million units were sold. So there's really not much out there compared to, I think, the Nintendo Entertainment System at the time, which sold like 30-some million or something. So, I mean, I don't like going to eBay to find what I want. I mean, I have a list of Master System games that I want, and I know I could go on eBay to find them. But to me, I don't know about you guys, I much prefer finding them at my local game shops or conventions. So I'm not really in a rush to collect. I like to collect organically and like finding it out in the wild and stuff like that. Or, maybe some of them more, maybe I'll pop out to eBay. I've done that in the past, where it's like, I don't think I'm going to find this game. This is a very rare one to find. So maybe I'll shoot my shot on eBay and just kind of, rip the Band-Aid off there. So, so that's really kind of what I've been playing. I've been playing a lot of different things and trying a lot of different games, uploading to the Polymega Remix. And I think I'm getting into wanting to play that, what was that, Gen 4? I think that's Gen 4 of like the kind of early disc-based games. I've been pulling out a lot of my PlayStation games and looking at them and like, maybe I should kind of jump into this era of gaming again. That generation, I think, especially the jump into 3D, there was a lot of experimentation and a lot of trying new things and, throwing darts at a wall and seeing if this works in 3D or if that works in 3D. And I think I mentioned it before, where there was a lot of kind of typical side-scrolling genres that made the jump to 3D, and some did well, some did not. So it's an interesting collection of games that I'm kind of looking through. Games that I've played when I was younger, and then obviously games that I picked up to say like, oh, I never played this game when I was younger, or I never heard of this game, but I'm kind of curious about it. So um, I may in the future actually start to kind of like delve more into this generation. So I'm kind of looking forward to it, kind of revisiting some old classics, and then also experiencing some new things, because that's the cool thing with retro. There's so much to experience, so long as you know where to look. So, all right, well, let's talk about some of the games that I've been playing. So I was talking about Parasite Eve 2, and admittedly, I never played Parasite Eve 1. And I don't know why, for some reason. I think when Parasite Eve 2 first came out, I probably saw a trailer or heard a friend of mine talking about it, and I was like, this looks like a cool game. I'm just going to jump into it. And it was a good game. Like I was like, wow, this is a really cool atmosphere. It's a really cool Aya Brea's really cool character. And they were it was very unique, the combat style, and I don't know how to, or like the combat mechanics. And I'll talk about it more with Parasite Eve when I talk about my gameplay. But I thought it was a really cool game, and I don't know why I just never went backward, to try the first one at the time. And I've had both games in my collection for years now, and I finally told myself, for some reason, I think I want to give the first one a spin. And let me tell you, man, this game is an experience. And this was made by Square Enix, very well known for fantasy RPGs. These guys were killing it with the Final Fantasy games at the time. Didn't really delve too much into like the modern era of games, like in terms of, modern day shooters or anything like that. Because, I mean, Parasite Eve, you're playing as a cop, like a New York cop. And the primary combat mechanic is gunplay. And in this, New York is being infested, or Manhattan is being infested by this kind of like disease or something like that called the mitochondria. And, for those that don't know, the mitochondria is powerhouse of the cell. It uses energy to kind of like, basically make you who you are. And that's kind of the, layman's, or it's just a short explanation of it. But Parasite Eve kind of delves more into a little bit of like what happens when that mitochondria mutates and turns people into monsters and stuff like that, and kind of unlocks true unlimited potential and power and all this stuff. So it's a very, like I said, it's a very interesting storyline, and they delve a lot into the science of it. But the interesting thing about this game is really the battle system, and it's turn-based combat, with randomly generated battles. You're wandering around new places in New York, like Central Park, Carnegie Hall, the police station, all these different places. And, you'll randomly enter into a battle. But the nice thing is that you could freely move around the battle space. And, you have like a ATB timer, whatever, similar to any turn-based, RPG. And once it hits that max level, then you can do your attack, and you can do, not magic powers, but I think like, what do they call it? PE powers or whatever, Parasite Eve powers. Maybe that's what PE stands for. Like heal, you can do energy shots, you can cast haste, slow, whatever, or just like use your gun. And like you can have like handguns, shotguns, assault rifles, normal rifles, submachine guns, stuff like that, whatever. So a lot of it has to do with, you got to move around to try to avoid attacks, because when the enemies attack you, you can move around and try to avoid them as best as you can. It's kind of hard to, but if you learn the enemy's patterns enough, you can kind of help predict. And some weapons have better range than others. Some weapons require you to be a little bit closer to be effective. Others have this wider range. Like when you're ready to attack, you get this sphere that pops up that shows your attack range. And, typically, like say if you have a shotgun, the attack range is shorter. If you have a rifle, attack range is longer. So you can actually be safer at, longer distances. I think one of my favorites is the submachine gun, because you can, with most rifles, you can pop like 2 shots or something like that, at an enemy. The submachine gun is like random. So like it could be like 4 shots, 5 shots, 6 shots, whatever. And it targets all the enemies in your circle radius, so to speak. So especially if you're being surrounded by a lot of different enemies at once, like you can actually like kind of like, you can use it to kind of clear enemies a little bit faster instead of focusing on one and then focusing on the other. Makes battles go a little bit faster, but obviously the weapon itself is weaker. Like the assault rifle is going to be probably your best bet, maybe your average bet. Unless you go into boss battles, then you may want to use different weapons and stuff like that. And you can kind of experiment, see what works. But limited inventory system, you can't just collect everything. You have to store items, which I forget to. Every now and then, all of a sudden, I collect new items like medicines and stuff like that, or maybe new weapons or even key items. Like you need keys to get through different doorways and different like card passes or whatever, like in the hospital especially. So yeah, like you have to kind of monitor your inventory space. And like I said, you can store stuff. You can actually put the cool thing is actually you can put things back into the chests that you got an item from. So like you can do an exchange. So like if you open a chest and says, hey, inventory space is full, you can actually exchange that. And then maybe later in the level, you can go back and maybe grab that item if you want to, especially if like you loosen inventory space, like if you use medicines or, you can get like power ups to like upgrade your attack or your defense and stuff like that. So it's a really good game. Very good story. Very kind of cool characters, very interesting characters, especially some of the short form ones. Or the short stay ones. There is one interesting story of a character, and he was like, I think he works at the police station. He's a cop. I forget his name off the top of my head. Danny or something like that. But anyway, he was like, you interact with him, and he just like, he's in charge of the weapons safety and the weapons lockers. But he hates guns for whatever reason. And like, I think one of the other cops there is like, can you just like stop talking that stuff? Like, weapons can be used safely and all this stuff. And he's like, really anti-weapon. And there comes a point into the game where I think it comes to a head where the reason why he hates guns is that his daughter was killed from a accidental discharge of a weapon. And it kind of shaped the way he thought about guns as a whole. And it was kind of a sad story of just like, well, I guess there's a reason why. And it's like, they didn't need to go this in depth of character development, especially since this character isn't a major character. But I thought it was very interesting the way they kind of like intertwined a little personal story to kind of, I don't know, not necessarily, I mean, it was, to kind of make you think a little bit, to make you like, oh man, like it gives extra punch to these characters because there's multiple different characters you interact with. And obviously, you have, the main scientist that you work for, and obviously your main cop buddy that you work for, who reminds me more like a Danny Glover type guy, from Lethal Weapon. But yeah, I thought overall good characters, good stories, good character stories, high stakes, environment. You can kind of wander around anywhere you want. And the locales are really good. This is very much a PlayStation 1 game, but very cool premise. Very cool premise. Probably one of the more unique games I think you'll ever play, especially with blending that turn-based combat with a kind of more modern action-oriented focus. So I'm excited. I'm quite a few hours in, actually. I've been playing it a lot, and I'm hoping to beat it at some points. I don't think I'm on disc 2 yet, but I'm hoping to get to Parasite Eve 2 and finish that again, because I remember playing it and beating it a long time ago. So I also got Halo Campaign Evolved. They remade Halo, the first Halo again, and this one's completely different engine, I guess, and this one's for the modern systems. And I would say do yourself a favor. Just stick with the Master Chief Collection if you have it. It's much cheaper, and I think that's enough of a remaster that you need. The Campaign Evolved, the new one that just came out, a couple weeks ago, it looks pretty. I'll give it that. It looks really good, really smooth. Everything looks great. There's 3 bonus missions which provide a little bit of story context, but not to me not significant enough to put it in there, but it was still fun. Me personally, I don't think it warrants spending $50-$60 on it. I have Game Pass, so I didn't really spend any extra money on it, but you're not missing much. And this game doesn't come with, and the initial campaign remaster, the Master Chief Collection, that has multiplayer on it. This one does not. So if you're here for the story, cool. If you're not, you're not missing much out of this. I would say stick with the Master Chief Collection, which is arguably much cheaper, especially even if you buy it physical. Or if you have Game Pass, obviously you can get it on there as well. Or, the original version. Original version, I think, still holds up. I think it's still a great game. So, yeah. Well, that's really kind of what I've been playing. I mean, I've been playing modern stuff, but, this is a retro gaming podcast, so we got to stick with the retro. So let's jump right into our talking point. Talking point. I'm leaving that in. This episode's topic, like I mentioned earlier in the intro, kind of centers around remasters. And I know I've done remasters in the past. I think I talked about like what are some of the best remasters, or what are some of the more, I think I did like, what are some of the good remasters coming out in 2026? And I know this topic isn't exactly retro by any means, but I think with the vast history us retro enthusiasts have, especially ones that continually play new games, going back to play our old games while also kind of playing those modern games, you tend to think to yourself, man, what if they remade this game with like modern sensibilities or quality of life improvements or modern tech, modern graphics, stuff like that. And actually, funny enough, I got to thinking about this after I was replaying Final Fantasy VII Remake. I ended up picking it up on my Switch too. And I bought it on day one when it first came out, and I was blown away at how the remake itself handled bringing an old school RPG, PlayStation 1 era RPG, to the modern era with updated combat system, updated graphics, all this stuff, while also retaining the heart and soul of the original. And it kind of, started, tickling that nostalgia button that I got, and Final Fantasy VII, even though I didn't put it as one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, still is very near and dear to my heart as one of my favorite games still nonetheless. And the remake and the Rebirth games, some of the better modern games to play out there, especially if you're a Final Fantasy fan. And recently I was strolling through Reddit and I found a thread on the r/gaming Reddit subreddit that touches on this topic itself, which is interesting. The topic itself actually is titled, if you want to go look at it, is what older game would you buy a remaster of without even a second of hesitation? And scrolling through the comments, there are a lot. I found a wide variety of comments and games that people brought up. And obviously most of them are retro games. Most of them kind of maybe even more a little bit recent that I won't touch on really, but I thought it'd be an interesting topic to dive into and have this be kind of a different kind of episode and talking about what the community wants, what the community is looking for. And I'll also share two of remasters I'd love to get on day one. And I got to share a story that I know for the longest time, they remade Resident Evil 1, technically for the GameCube. And I didn't know how badly I wanted a remaster for Resident Evil 2 up until I saw that first trailer, and I bricked up. I was like, I need this game. I need this game. This is a remaster that I didn't know I think I needed, or it was a remake, so to speak. I didn't think I needed, I didn't think I wanted, but I gotta have this. Like, that was a day one purchase for me. And I was like, collector's edition if there is one, but that one sold out real quick. Like, I was like actually kind of upset about it. I mean, I ended up getting it in a secondhand store. Eventually, I'm actually staring at the Leon Kennedy statue right now as we speak. So at least I have it. I ended up getting it in my collection at some point. But yeah, so I'll also share two remasters I'd love to get on day one as well, but I'll save that for the end, so to speak. So we're gonna start with a big one actually, and Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, and I didn't play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 until much later. And I didn't play it when it came out because I think I was, in that time, I was in my edgy 20-year-old years where I was like playing first-person shooters and action-oriented games. I'd kind of fallen out of Star Wars a bit because episodes 1, 2, and 3, I think I was that old school guy that loved 4, 5, and 6, and I don't think I really was into like episodes 1, 2, and 3 at the time, which I know it's can be kind of seen as sacrilegious to maybe some of the Gen Z people out there right now. But um, I Star Wars I wasn't really that interested in, and it wasn't until like a few years later, I think on the 360, where I went back and played it. Especially I think after Mass Effect came out, because BioWare made Knights of the Old Republic 1, and saw a lot of the DNA of Mass Effect in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and I was like, oh man, this is a great game. I can't believe I skipped out on this. I can't believe I missed this. And they obviously you can play this on modern systems now. You can play this on your Xbox Series X. I think you can play this on PC as well. You can download it, or if you have, I have the disc copy of this. I can just pop it right into my Series X and play it. So I never beat it myself, but I know I can't remember the last time I played it, but there is a remake of this game being worked on right now. However, I think it's been through a little bit of development hell. I think it's passed hands to different developers. So as far as I know, I think it's Saber Interactive is helming the remake right now. I assume it's still going. I highly doubt it's going to come out anytime soon, especially if they have to maybe restart development. There's a lot of the DNA there, and I think a remake would be great without having to change too much of it. Because to me, like I said, I think I played it maybe for a little bit, a few years ago on my Series X, and I was like, it still kind of holds up. So I don't think they need to do too much to, make the game better. And I think that's the one great thing about some of these retro games. It's like the games are already good as is, even that's still held up to this day. I think Knights of the Old Republic is, granted, yeah, there's a little bit of the jankiness that they could get rid of. Maybe they can improve the combat a little bit, but I think you got a lot of the DNA there. That's what brings people back to replaying KOTOR is, the interactions, the conversations, the story, the romancing options and stuff like that. And then like the blend of, going to the light side to the dark side as you, kind of go into the game. I mean, BioWare did it right back then. So, but like I said, I think you can, I know Knights of the Old Republic 2, you can, it didn't, I mean, you could play that on modern systems too. I never played that one. But or maybe I think I did actually, because I think they did like a little bit of a remaster, because I think Obsidian did the second one, which very well known for their work with Fallout New Vegas. So another one, Splinter Cell. We're still waiting. I know Ubisoft said they're making a Splinter Cell remake, but this is definitely one of my favorite sneaking stealth games of all time. Kudos to Metal Gear and Snake for kind of walking so that Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell could run. I think you got a more mature storyline because this is Tom Clancy's DNA written all over it. It was Tom Clancy's video game studio at the time that developed this, and they kept it grounded in reality, very deeply political, intriguing storylines and stuff like that, and kind of seemingly plausible real world circumstances. But the stealth mechanics are great. The use of lighting is great. Imagining what this game would look like now would be awesome. And I think I replayed this last year on my Series X too, because this is backwards compatible with the Xbox systems and still holds up to this day. Granted, it's a little bit slower than maybe some of the more modern stealth games out there right now. Like I'm thinking of Assassin's Creed, but I think there's patience in this game that you need. But still to this day, me personally, I still think it holds up. I think it's the first three are arguably the better versions. I know we got Conviction, which was good. We got Double Agent, and what was the other one? Blacklist or something like that, which that one came out, I think, on the PS3, 360, and, same with Conviction. And those are good games, a little bit faster, kind of more Jason Bourne-ish, but you want something a little bit more slower, play the first 3 games. What was it? The Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow, and Chaos Theory. Great, arguably great games. Here's a big one. Legend of Dragoon. I have zero faith that this is going to get remade, knowing Sony and the way they are with a lot of their old IPs. However, it doesn't stop people from dreaming. And I didn't play this game when it first came out. I only started playing it a few years ago, and I love the DNA of it. I love the storyline of it. I think, honestly, the graphics and the animation in this game are great. Like, it doesn't look stilted and kind of stiff like some of the Final Fantasy games do in this era. But I think the variety of characters, I think it could stand to use a rewrite. Some of the dialogue is a little campy, I don't know, maybe there's translation errors, because I think this was made by Sony Studios, so it's probably primarily written by a Japanese team and, maybe not translated the best. So I think it could stand to use a rewrite. The great thing about this game is that there's a major mechanic in the turn-based RPGs battle systems in here that Clear Obscure took from. Clear Obscure took the kind of like the timed power attacks from this game as a point of reference. So I think with the success in how the turn-based combat system in Clear Obscure did, I think if we had a remake of this one, which I think after Clear Obscure came out, I think a lot of people started kind of crying for this game because it's like, imagine Legend of Dragoon looking like that. God, that would be so amazing. So I am not confident that's going to happen, but we'll see. Time Splitters 2, that was a really good one. PS2, GameCube era. I honestly, it was it's a very interesting gameplay story. Similar in style to kind of like the GoldenEye era of first-person shooters. It dealt with a lot of different, time traveling mechanics. You were kind of all over the place, and you were using futuristic weapons. You were back in World War I, World War II settings and stuff like that. So, I thought I heard that there was supposed to be a remake of this. I know it looks like there's a fan project. It's called Time Splitters Rewind, where they are remaking it. But honestly, I think the multiplayer modes is really what split this, pun intended, made this a kind of a, very well-known game at the time, a very good party game, couch co-op, 4-player, like multiplayer split screen. Man, it'd be cool to have that again, but Time Splitters Rewind is probably your best bet. Chrono Trigger is a big one. I really don't need to say anything about this. Me personally, I don't think it should be remade. I think it should stay the way it is. I think it's perfect the way it is. There's some games out there that I'm afraid if they remake it, they would lose a little bit of the soul of it. I would love, actually, if they retained the same game and maybe turned it into an Octopath Traveler style graphics. If you play modern games, you'll know that Octopath Traveler is a game series now that Square Enix does, where it's kind of like 2.5D, where it's still got that same Super Nintendo retro style graphics, but more 3D, if anything, and they call it 2.5D. I think that would look great. If they did Chrono Trigger in that style of graphics, I'd be on board 100%. Don't touch anything else in the game, but do that. Do that. That would be great for me. That would be my ideal one. It also mentions Xenogears. I have that on my list. Legend of Legaia. That's another one. I don't think I have that one, but Xenogears I bought last year at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but who knows? We'll see. Dragon Age Origins is an interesting one because the original BioWare developers actually can't even remake this game or even remaster it because they don't know the source code. They don't know how to remaster it. I think I didn't do my research on this story, but because I'm reading these live. But yeah, there's no way they can remaster it. It's either they don't have the source code or they don't know how to use the engine, so to speak. So, I mean, there's got to be people out there that know how to do it. it just sucks that it's a franchise that's like locked to a developer studio that like won't just, they can't just get rid of it up. One of my favorite comments about this one is, I throw you in front of a bus for a, what was that? The comment is, I think my wife would throw me in front of a bus in exchange for a Dragon Age Origins remaster. So yeah, interesting. Simpsons Hit and Run, very popular one that would, I think, stand to benefit. I mean, you can make Springfield much bigger. You can make it wider. Bring a lot of the old voice actors back. I mean, there's, at this point in the Simpsons universe, there's plenty of characters to add. So you could keep the same game, maybe add some more characters, add some more NPCs, make Springfield bigger. I mean, if you know this game, it's fun. This game is super fun to have. Probably the best Simpsons game to buy right now. And if you're going to buy it, the price is going up on this. I think a lot more people are finding out how much fun this game was. And it's going up. It's in the triple digits right now, which is kind of unfortunate. I wasn't much of an Elder Scrolls guy growing up, but Morrowind is one that's getting a lot of steam. I think a lot of people want, especially off the heels of Oblivion getting a remake. Morrowind would be probably a good one. Max Payne, that's apparently getting remade by Remedy Games, the original developers of it. So Max Payne 1 and 2 is supposed to be getting remade. I think that would... I mean, the game itself is kind of janky. I want to say I played one recently, and I was like, the combat had good DNA, and obviously at the time, no one else was doing this kind of gameplay at the time because you had that bullet time mechanics and a little bit more loose third-person controls. It's not like our modern third-person shooters right now where we have a little bit more tighter controls, a little bit more tighter movement. So I think remaking Max Payne would be huge. I think it would improve the game vastly. Remedy is pretty busy right now. I think they're developing a sequel to Control. And hopefully we'll get this coming soon. Maybe this is a side project that they've been working on, but they announced this project 4 years ago. So hopefully we'll hear something soon, but I think Max Payne could deserve a nice little remake. Jak and Daxter, and I think you can lump in Jak and Daxter and Sly Cooper in this. And I think we recently announced that Activision's making Spyro the Dragon game. And you had this era of, this Gen 6, Gen 5 mascot type games. And Jak and Daxter being kind of one of the earlier trilogies for Naughty Dog, who went on after this series to do Uncharted, and then The Last of Us, and then whatever they're working on now, Prophet Heretic or something like that, whatever. But I think Jak and Daxter would be a really good series. I played the first two. I never played the third one, or Jak Racing, or whatever it was. Huge tonal shift between the first and second one. The second one was a lot darker and a lot kind of more mature than the first one. The first one was pretty campy, colorful, and stuff like that. The second one had a real kind of more of a darker tone. I don't know if that hurt the franchise or not. I thought both were good, but I think if they kept a little bit of the campiness in the second one, if they were to do a trilogy remake, I would say if you're going to do a remake, just stick with the first one. I think, at this point, doing a full-on trilogy remake would be kind of daunting, or even a remaster. I would love a remaster because I don't think... I mean, I think you can play the original Jak and Daxter games on that PlayStation Classics collection or something like that, if that interests you. But I think... Or you can play it on the Vita. I know the trilogy is available on the Vita and the PlayStation 3. Just PlayStation 4 and 5, I don't think so. I can't recall, but Crimson Skies, one of the original games for the Xbox. I know that's a popular one. A lot of people, a lot of Command and Conquer on this list. A lot of Command and Conquer. I wasn't much into CRPGs, but because I think at the time when these games were popular, I was too young and I was like, this is big brain stuff. I can't think like this. Like I was more into like kind of like the easier like hack and slash like side scrolling games. Even some RPGs sometimes at the time when I was younger I was like, Big brain stuff. Not good with big brain stuff. Jade Empire, another RPG. BioWare developed. Kind of interesting because it was more of like a kind of like a melee based combat system, but really good. Honestly, really good. It's same BioWare DNA that you got with KOTOR. Infamous 1 and 2. God, that would be great. The fact that this series is, besides Second Son, I think on the PlayStation 4, the fact that Infamous 1 and 2 is locked on the PS3 is such a crime. I mean, you can do a remaster. This would for sure be a day one purchase for me. But obviously, I think these guys are working on the Spider-Man games. They're working on Wolverine right now, the same development team. So I think we're not going to get that. Need for Speed Most Wanted. That's a very popular one. I was more of a Need for Speed Underground 2. Actually, I would love Need for Speed Underground 2 more. But Most Wanted, I know, is a very popular one. The iconic BMW, the very iconic soundtrack. I mean, that's when a lot of people got into nu metal. I know Disturbed, Mudvayne, Static X, those bands hit their strides once, in these Need for Speed games. And I don't know, early Need for Speed in this era, we haven't seen it better. Most Wanted, I think, was the top tier. Underground 1 and 2 were great. Most Wanted was, it wasn't my favorite. Like I said, Underground 2 was my favorite. And Most Wanted was great. Don't get me wrong, but I think the series hasn't seen that same quality or that same lovableness, if that's a word, since this one. I mean, we had good games. Carbon was pretty good. That came out on the 360, PS3 era. Hot Pursuit came out, I think, in that era too as well. That was pretty good. But really, honestly, I think Underground 2 would be my vote. For God, I would be there day one. Day one. I'd be calling in sick to work if they remastered or remade Underground 2. Most Wanted is definitely up there for me. God. Couple people, original Star Wars Battlefront. I mean, no story. I mean, there was a story because I think it was taking place during like the Clone Wars and stuff like that and whatever. Or maybe at the height, I forget when exactly the timeline was. You can correct me in the comments, please. But just the kind of simple gameplay of it, you're just playing conquest mode. You're taking control of an army, and you play as every type of army. You could play as the Empire, you could play as the Rebel Alliance, you could play as the Droid Army, whatever. And then just conquest mode, you're just on a battlefield. And honestly, you don't need any more than that. Just make the game bit fun. Wasn't multiplayer, just single player only, but just so much fun to just jump in and be like, I'm just going to play a battle for a little bit. Fallout 3 New Vegas. I think we've also got that confirmed. That they're remaking that one as well as Fallout 3. Path of Neo, someone said. That's interesting. That was, I think, like a side story. If I recall, that was a side story during the Matrix trilogy movies. It dealt with a little bit more of the side characters. I think, like, what was it, Naomi and Ghost? And I think some of the other side characters you got to play as more. And then you got to segue into playing as Neo too as well. But it was an interesting game. Sure. No One Lives Forever. Oh man, that's such a good game. PlayStation 2 still holds up, I think. I think just a quick quality of life improvement, just clean up the graphics a bit. And I think, you got modern controls, I think I played it on my PlayStation 2 a year or two ago, actually. And, improve the modern controls a bit, make the gameplay move a little faster. I know it's a little slow, but I mean, you don't want to remove too much of the DNA, but I definitely think this would be a good one. Conker's Bad Fur Day. If you're interested, this is on PC now. This is on Xbox. So if you go to the Xbox store, you can actually buy this game for pretty cheap, or it's free if you have Game Pass. But you had Conker's Bad Fur Day for the 64, and then you had the Xbox version, which was, I think they added a little bit of multiplayer, a lot of multiplayer. They added a couple extra missions, I think. There was like that infamous D-Day mission where, you're storming the beaches of Normandy. I mean, not a fictional version of Normandy in the Conquer universe, but it was it was a good kind of like I wouldn't say a remaster, so to speak, but just improved. You went from Nintendo 64 graphics to Xbox graphics. So that game the Xbox version is arguably a lot cheaper if you buy the physical copy than the N64 version. But I think, having a full-on remaster, sure. But for now, you could download it on your Xbox. So, Mercenaries, I don't think we're going to get that. I think the Pandemic Studios, the guys that made that game, they're currently defunct, and I think that's probably in EA's pocketbook. So I don't think we're going to get that. Tony Hawk Underground. Tony Hawk's Underground 1 and 2, I want to say a lot of people want. We've been getting a lot of the Tony Hawk remasters lately, and a lot of them have been getting pretty good reviews. I don't know if we would get Underground 1 and 2. Like if that would be kind of like Tony Hawk Overload now. Because you can get Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 kind of like as two separate games. So I don't know if Underground would do. I mean, I would assume it would do as well. But the Fear trilogy, that would be a good one. That would be a good series. Parasite Eve. Someone said Parasite Eve. That would be great. Let's see. SOCOM. Oh God. PlayStation 2 SOCOM. Bring me back, man. I did not have a robust internet at the time. So I couldn't play this online. I didn't have the network adapter or anything like that, but I had a friend of mine that did. And God, playing SOCOM, you'd never experienced anything like that before. And granted, so if SOCOM were to be remade or re-released right now, I think the last SOCOM game we got was like a PlayStation 3 game, and it was kind of more single player focused. But I don't think it would be as groundbreaking now as it was when it came out on the PlayStation 2. But I think you could still make a great SOCOM game nowadays, as long as you don't make it like live service garbage. But yeah, SOCOM, bring it back. Some a good single player campaign, really robust multiplayer, because that's what people are going to come out to play. So long as it's not live service garbage, I think that would do very well. A lot of people want a Dino Crisis remake or a remaster. I think it could stand to use one. I think there would be a lot of quality of life improvements that could be used. My personal opinion, this could be divisive, but Dino Crisis 1 did not age well. Good DNA, but I think, it could be improved. And I kind of said the same thing when I replayed Resident Evil Code Veronica lately, and that's why I'm glad we're getting a remake of that one, because Code Veronica was fine, but out of all the Resident Evil games that people are crying a remake for, that one I think needed it more than any game in the series. So Dino Crisis especially, I mean, made by Resident Evil developers, so it's very much tank controlled Resident Evil style game, with dinosaurs as your enemies. And, it's a good game, good story. Like, I'm not knocking it, but when I replayed it, I want to say a few months ago, I was like, it's pretty rough around the edges. This could definitely use a remake. A lot of people really want Deus Ex to be remade. And I want to say it's supposed to be. But the initial trailers, I think if I recall, did not look great. I'm not entirely confident that it's going to be the remaster or the remake people want. I think graphically it just didn't look great. I want to say they kind of removed a lot of the graphical kind of, what would you call it? The tone and the look of it was not what the original game looked like. And it's hard to do with some of these remakes and remasters, because you have to nail the tone, you have to nail the look. And when you go into the modern era, that's hard to emulate, especially at the time. There's always the running joke of kind of like the color palettes and the tones that we used in those times, where because of like hardware limitations or what the theme was at the time, there was like the kind of like green and brown and gray era of the 360 with the gritty kind of like shooter type games, like Gears of War, Spec Ops: The Line, and some of these other like kind of like military shooters where the palette was kind of similar in that way, and it was like, okay, every game coming out it looks this way. So making games now with that same tone would be very difficult. So someone said Rogue Squadron for the N64. Highly agree. Comment right underneath, TIE Fighter. God, I love TIE Fighter. I never had the full game. I only had the demo floppy disk, but I played that demo to death, and because I think my parents at the time didn't want me to buy PC games because they were like, your computer should be used for school and like research and stuff like that, not for playing games. But I think I managed to buy magazines and they came with demos, so I had a demo of this game, and it was, God, I mean, interesting gameplay to play as the Empire, so to speak, especially when, there was the companion game, which was called X-Wing, which that was obviously more popular. But I think TIE Fighter, me personally, I think TIE Fighter was better. And I think that could definitely stand to use a remake. Similar maybe to like, I think the PSVR game that came out recently. I know there was a VR game. I forget what it was called off the top of my head, but that would be cool to experience in VR, much less just even on a flat screen. So, here's a big list. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. I think that's definitely on a lot of people's minds. And I think that could stand to just be a remaster. No need to touch anything. Clean up the graphics a bit. 60 frames a second. Bada bing, bada boom, you're in. Jet Set Radio Future would be a good one. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is a game that came out recently that nails the tone of Jet Set Radio. So I would say that's probably as close as you're going to get to maybe like a remaster or a remake of Jet Set Radio, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Obviously, it's not the same, but I think with the kind of like decent success of that, Sega could just pump out a little remaster and say, here you go. We know you guys love this. I talked about Sly Cooper. You can get the Sly Cooper games on your PlayStation if you have that Classics account or whatever. But I mean, just you don't need to touch anything with this one. And this is kind of the great thing about some of these remasters is like you don't need to touch a lot of it. You could just retain the same gameplay mechanics, maybe add a couple quality of life improvements, clean up the graphics a bit to kind of mesh nice with our 4K TVs, do some resolution changes and, slap it on a disc or just downloadable, and sell it. I mean, slam dunk, really. I mean, I know game development's hard. I know there's time commitments and, there's time involved in it, but I mean, talk about easy money. There's plenty of guys my age, even younger, kids playing Sly Cooper. I was an adult when the Sly Cooper series came out, but there's kids at that time that are now in their 30s that have disposable income that were like, I would love a Sly Cooper remake or a remaster or something like that. So, let's see, Siphon Filter, that would be another good one. But once again, another kind of genre that's locked by Sony that just they don't want to give up. Like Sly Cooper, Jack and Daxter, Resistance, that would be a good series, but that's too new. Siphon Filter would be a good one. Kind of along the same lines of Splinter Cell, except Siphon Filter is obviously a little bit more action focused, but I would love Siphon Filter to come out. I played the first one just recently, and I could think of a lot of quality of life improvements that could be done to kind of make it a little bit more modern. The gameplay runs fine, don't get me wrong, and if they just, I mean, I know you could download these onto your modern PlayStation hardware, but, cleaning up a little bit, in terms of the control scheme, I think you could definitely print money if you did an official remake or remaster of this. But Diddy Kong Racing, that's funny. But some say it was better than Mario Kart 64. I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. I played more Mario Kart 64 at the time than I did Diddy Kong Racing, but I could see the appeal. It was a little bit, Diddy Kong Racing a little bit more varied in tracks and mechanics and stuff than Mario Kart Racing was. or Mario Kart 64 was. Skies of Arcadia would be a good one, especially the ability to skip cutscenes. God, some of those cutscenes can get so long. Someone said Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. We were getting a remake of that. That did not pan out, unfortunately. Ubisoft closed that project. Viva Pinata? Sure. We did kind of get a remaster for GoldenEye. You can get this on your 64 and on your Xbox. And I would say on the Xbox, it's a little bit better to play because of the modern control scheme that's on there. It's more familiar control scheme to modern first-person shooters because playing GoldenEye on the N64 with that N64 controller and that control scheme, it takes some getting used to. It didn't necessarily age well. It's a little bit of a struggle, especially since if you've been playing first-person shooters for years now, and then going back to play that, I mean, eventually muscle memory should kick in, especially if you got your hands on a Nintendo 64 controller, which you can with the Switch. But yeah, it takes some getting used to. Let's just say that. Yeah, there's just a lot of. I have seen like Freedom Fighters here quite a bit, which that was a good game made by IO Interactive. I think they're on the Hitman series, but I would love for them to come back and just slap a new coat of paint on this one. This was a really good one, kind of like a Red Dawn, but it's similar to the movie Red Dawn. You know, Soviet Union or Russians coming to invade America, and you're just a plumber, and you're leading a resistance army against the Soviet threat. But I think that would be. I think that's one you definitely wouldn't have to do too much to. Wing Commander, that's a popular one. I've never played those games. Rogue Galaxy, I think that's another one I've never played, but I've heard so many great things about. I have it in my collection. I would love to find time to get to it because I think I bought that one. I know, and I think Dark Cloud, I have that in my collection that I tell myself I want to get into at some point. Star Fox Adventure, I don't know how well that would do. It's a good game. I played it for the first time just recently, and it's a cool game. Like, it's definitely different than most other Star Fox games out there. But yeah, a lot of Chrono Trigger in this list. A lot of Chrono Trigger, a lot of Dragon Age Origins, a lot of Skies of Arcadia, a lot of KOTOR. Soul Reaver, The Legacy of Kain, that got a remaster last year. Unreal Tournament would be such a good remaster. You wouldn't, and that's another one you wouldn't have to do too much on. And I think this person comments, especially if Night Dive handles it. And Night Dive Studios has been doing a lot of remasters and remakes. They did the Dark Forces remaster, which is really good. I think they did Quake and Quake 2. They did the Hex and Heretic games. I think they just recently did Blood, which, I mean, Rise of the Triad. I mean, they're knocking it out of the park. So someone give them Unreal. Tournament, please. Let's see, Dark Forces 2, that's one. Kind of more so like modern games. Eternal Darkness, that's a really good one because that one, unfortunately, is locked on the GameCube. You can't get it anywhere else. But I would love Eternal Darkness to come back to modern hardware. That one, I wouldn't think you would even need to do too much to. But I just wonder, with a lot of these that aren't going to see the light of day, maybe, I just wonder why. Why are they locked? Sell them to someone. A couple SSX games on here. Final Fantasy VI. That would be a big one. And I think one of the developers at Square Enix came out recently and said that game is too big, which I would disagree with. I don't think it's that big that, you can't do a remake because you're remaking Final Fantasy VII into 3 games. You could do the same with 6 or even just make it shorter. You don't need to make 6 as massive. If anything, kind of like what I talked about with the Chrono Trigger remake or remaster, do it in that same game, just do it in that 2.5D Octopath Traveler, graphical interface, and that's it. Print money. It's you're printing money at that point. God, MechWarrior 2, that had such a good soundtrack. But the more successful mech game we had really was the more recent Armored Core. The MechWarrior series, we saw MechWarrior 5, I think, recently. I don't think MechWarrior 2 would do really well. The Phantasy Star games, especially Phantasy Star 2, that's one on this list. I never played any of the Phantasy Star games, but I do know they're up there with popularity as like kind of an obscure RPG set. I think the more recent Phantasy Star games, I think I talked about them recently, kind of more in the multiplayer MMO space, but some of the older ones are just single player RPGs. Burnout 3 Takedown, man, that would be, God, I love the Burnout 3 Takedown and Burnout Paradise. God, peak games. We just need another one. We need more. Saints Row 2, that would be a good one. That's a little bit more modern. Commandos 2. Never played the Commandos games. Kingdom Hearts. I was waiting for this on the list. You got one kind of more. You're getting one, I think, coming up. I think didn't they announce like a kind of like the trilogy onto like the Switch 2 and the modern systems? So, you're getting that. I don't think they improved too much with it, but yeah. The Killzone games, actually. The Killzone 1 could stand to do a really good remake. Make the game a little bit faster. Because playing Killzone 1, very slow game. It was pegged to be the Halo killer, and a Halo killer it did not. Someone said Oni. Oni for the PlayStation 2. That was Bungie's first console game. That was a good game. I think Bungie's a little bit busy right now trying to keep Marathon afloat. But I imagine, I think they still own that IP. The entire Ultima series, that's a small niche community there. Tenchu, man, I would love a new Tenchu game. The first Tenchu would be so good. We almost got a Tenchu game with Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, but they changed it, I think, mid-development to just make it its own standalone game instead of a Tenchu game. But I would love Tenchu to come back. PlayStation 1 era stealth games were, trying new things. And God, I got to go back and play this game. I got to install this on my Polymega. I got to go back and play these games. So good, such good games. You can make, traversal a little bit better, a little bit faster. Obviously, the traversal was limited by the hardware. But God, if you remade Tenchu with a lot of quality of life improvements, you'd have to touch a couple things to make the movement a little bit faster. It was too easy sometimes to do stealth, but nowadays, like, people think stealth is like, oh, there's tall grass here, there's tall grass there, like that's stealth. No, this is like hopping onto buildings, hiding around corners, stuff like that. This is true ninja stuff. This could be a good remake, remaster. The Last Remnant. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I enjoyed that game when it was out, but yeah. Guild Wars, X-Men Legends 1 and 2, that would be good. That would be an interesting one. I think especially with X-Men kind of coming into the kind of more the Marvel universe now, I think that would be good. I think now would be a good time to bring some more X-Men games, and I think X-Men Legends 1 and 2 would be a good slam dunk. Slap a fresh coat of paint on it, call it a day. So, Leisure Suit Larry? Nah. I don't think we have the environment right now for that. God, it's like every fourth comment is Chrono Trigger. Mega Man Legends, that would be a good one. That's a rough game. That would need a full top-down remake to make it good. I played Mega Man 64, which is pretty much the same as Mega Man Legends, because I would think it was Legends on the PlayStation. And I played Mega Man 64, and that's... you have to have a love for Mega Man to really kind of get into that game. And I love me and my Mega Man. But that would need... Honestly, if you keep the campy dialogue. Keep the campy dialogue, make the gameplay a little bit faster, actually a whole lot of faster, better graphics, and I think you could have a makings of a good remake. But I know you can't keep that dialogue. That dialogue was cringy. Oof, very cringy. But, there's something there. There's something there. Fable 1, that would be a good one. I would definitely agree with you on that. Let's see. Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic. Counter-Strike. Yeah, sure. I mean, you got CSGO, but I know it's not the same. That's what this comment says. It's not the same. But, original Counter-Strike would be kind of an interesting one. There's a couple Final Fantasy 9s here, which I think would be a good one. Sid Meier's Pirates. I never played this, but I know the Sid Meier's games are very popular. So definitely, I think it's high on a lot of people's list. I've seen this actually a couple times on this list. Twisted Metal. God, Sony, you're sitting on so many good IPs. So many good IPs. Give us Twisted Metal. You gave us a TV series. You think it would be a slam dunk to just give us a remake of a game or a remaster even? You can buy these, in their true form, but on the modern PlayStation Classics collection. But God, just give us a new game. Not even just remaster. Just give us a new game. I think it would actually be fun. A good kind of like vehicular combat game. And especially if Sony, could have a good studio on it. They got good studios. They do. Still Xenogears. I'm gonna have to get into that soon. So, Army of Two, that was an interesting one. I love that game. A little bit more modern. Mass Effect using the Mass Effect 3 combat system. Now that's an interesting concept. Because Mass Effect 1's combat system was a lot slower. It was a little bit more RPG focused, a little bit kind of more, I say RPG focused, but it was like kind of more random as opposed to kind of the more focused combat that Mass Effect 2 and 3 got. So, oh God, if they made Mass Effect using the Mass Effect 3 combat system, which is a lot more faster, a lot more action oriented, oh God, that would make the game kind of worth playing. Because telling people to play the Mass Effect trilogy and just say, you're only playing the first one for the story, characters, and kind of a little bit more of the universe context. The combat's not the greatest, even though the Legendary Edition fixed a little bit of it. It still didn't, take out a lot of the jank. But man, if they made it with the Mass Effect 3 combat system, God, it would be so good. Ocarina of Time, we're getting that one this year. Super Metroid. Oh, Super Metroid would be such a good one. But I don't think it needs one. I really don't think it needs one. I think it still plays great. I still play it routinely every so often. I don't go in and beat it every time, but I jump in, and I'm just surprised how well it holds up. You don't need to remake this game, but I would not say no if they came out and said, hey, we're just remaking it. So, Freelancer. I've seen this game pop up recently in this list a lot, and I've never heard of this game, which is probably going to date me. So it's 2003 space trading and combat simulation video game. That'd be kind of interesting. I wonder how that would work. I think it would work really well. I mean, there's, you got like that freaking like not StarCraft, but there's a Star Citizen, that big Kickstarter fund where people are just throwing money at them for like an unfinished game. I think that would be good. Quake would be a good one. Quake would be a good remake. We got what Night Dive Studios did one, but like more like a full-on remake would be very interesting. But I would hate to think that the tone would be off. So maybe not. Maybe not. Someone said Need for Speed Underground. That's cool. Although someone interesting thing that I'm reading this comment right now, and this person said none, because you can't trust the dev teams to not change random parts of the game to fit their vision of it. And this is kind of an interesting comment that I'm reading now, because I talked about earlier about how the tone of certain games when they were made, and if you were to reimagine it or remaster it or remake it now, is very hard to do and very hard to nail. And um, there's a few games that have nailed it. I would say Resident Evil 2 and Final Fantasy 7 are the ones that I think nailed it the best. Resident Evil 4 remake definitely did too as well. I'm not knocking that, but I think Resident Evil 2 is a little bit more near and dear to my heart. So I think some of these games, I think I've even mentioned, where like Quake, for example, I just talked about. It will be tough to nail the tone in the modern era. You can make it kind of look a little bit like Doom, like the more modern Doom games, but I think really Quake should stay where it's at. Just a remaster, clean up the graphics, make it look 4K, 60 frames a second, do all that. Don't touch anything else. So, yeah, I think there's really a conversation to be had about like, do we need remasters or remakes, or just like re-release it, clean it up a bit to have it play nice on modern hardware, and yeah, I think that's really it. Someone said Killer Instinct. The Xbox One Killer Instinct was good, but I don't know if you need a remake of that. I don't think you really do, or even a remaster. I think it would just change the game entirely too much. Yeah, and the list kind of repeats itself. A lot of Dino Crisis, a lot of Need for Speed Undergrounds, Sly Cooper's. God, that one's been on here a lot. Someone said God Hand. That's an interesting one. Yeah, Splinter Cell, GoldenEye's been on here. Simpsons Hit and Run, kind of the more popular ones. When you go back, Alundra. That's interesting. Oh, it's in here twice. That's interesting. But really, it kind of comes down to, these are all very personal choices. And two of mine would be Illusion of Gaia. I would love a remaster or a remake of that. I think having Illusion of Gaia still retain that top-down look instead of like the third-person over-the-shoulder action camera, which I'd be afraid that they would do. I think that would ruin the tone of the game. However, I would not be upset if they made that decision, if it made sense. And that would have to be obviously focus tested, and you're making a game to appeal to modern audiences as well as trying to appease those old school audiences, and that's very hard to do, especially when you want new people to get into old games. And there's some old games that don't age very well. I talked about the Final Fantasy VII remake, where it's like the combat is a little bit more palatable for modern gamers instead of the old school like turn-based wait and attack combat strategy that was there. That was the commonplace for games in that era. It's not as popular now. So if they would have literally did Final Fantasy VII remake graphics with that literal same combat style, it wouldn't have done very well. Especially with kind of more modern, more younger audiences. So Illusion of Gaia is more of a hack and slash. So I think there's really not much you need to change with that. I would say the only thing blocking it from being made is that the story centers around teenagers. And I think, games with storylines where the teenagers are the main characters is not as popular these days. The video game audience is getting a little older. So I don't think guys and girls in their 30s are going to be lining up to go play a game about teenagers. So I would be afraid that they would change the story a little bit. So, but we always have Illusion of Gaia and Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I think that's a obvious reasons why. We had a really good sequel, so to speak, with Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds. Kind of same art. Although me personally, I would love it to be the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past to be a little grittier, a little bit darker in tone, especially when you go to the Dark World in Link to the Past. But Link Between Worlds was a little bit more colorful. Not knocking it. Thought it was a great game. I beat it multiple times. Thought it was a great sequel, so to speak. But I think Link to the Past should be a little bit more darker tone, kind of like how Twilight Princess was. A little bit more grittier look to it. So, but yeah, that pretty much kind of wraps up what I want. and what the community wants. Kind of all over the place. It's going through this list. There was a lot kind of more modern stuff that I was like I didn't talk about or I didn't touch on, but a lot of repeats. Someone said Panzer Dragoon Saga. That would be a good one. That would be a good one to get remade, I think. I know we got, I think, Panzer Dragoon remake or remaster recently, but if Sega can continue, that would be great. So, but yeah, I mean, wherever you follow me, Twitter, Instagram, even on YouTube at Retro X Podcast. Let me know what you think. Let me know what remasters or remakes you would love to have, as older and as new as you want. So let me know. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.